Every grain has a story to tell, and it's up to you to tell it. Hey, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm going to show you a few different projects that you can build for the upcoming holiday season. Now, I know it's a little bit too soon. We're only the middle of October right now, but Christmas is creeping up in December. And as a woodworker, you need time to build this stuff, especially if you're going to be doing craft shows and whatnot, because you got to build up a little bit of inventory to go with you. So I'm going to show you a few different projects. One of them at the end of the video is one you're really going to want to watch because it is a project. Actually, I've had one in my house for a couple of years now, specifically for Christmas time. It's been amazing, and it was almost a need with having my kids in the house. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. I'm also going to show you a couple other projects that I'm working on that I haven't finished yet because I'm just fine tuning them, but they're also for the upcoming Christmas holidays. Okay, so I'm going to put those at the end too. Make sure to watch for those also. Okay, so the first project that I've got for you is a fairly simple one. The tools you're going to need for this are a table saw and a miter saw. Those are the easiest ways to go, or you can do it all on a table saw if you've got a miter gauge. You can also do this with some hand tools as well. That's entirely up to you. And that first project is a Christmas tree.
Three is a symbol of the spirit of the Griswold family Christmas.
Just like this. Super simple with this one. So I made this out of cherry wood. So it's a very simple build. Again, if you've seen any of my other videos, I have a ton of cherry. So that's why I use it. This here is a bunch of pieces that are just glued together with some brad nails on the inside to hold them for a little bit of stability while the glue's set. But because there's no pressure on this, it's easy enough to do it with just glue. So all I did on this here is I made this bottom piece here 12 inches wide, and the overall height of this is about 14 inches. That accounts for about 1.5 inches on the base of this project. Each of these pieces, so my top pieces, this one specifically here, this one is about 6 inches long to form the 6 inches on both sides. And then these are all 5 inches long here because I was trying to give it the look to make sure that it was a little bit taller than it was wider. Um, as far as the angles on this, it kind of follows the same general rules of a triangle, that a triangle needs to make up a total of 180 degrees. So with this, every single cut that is done on this tree to join it together, as well as the ones that are making these parts that stick out here, are all 30 degrees. And every single one of these cuts was made on my miter saw. So there really wasn't much to it from that point of view. As far as thickness for this, it's not overly thick, so about 1.125 thick on this one. And then our base piece, and this is entirely up to you. The base can be whatever measurement you want it to be, but this one is 5.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And then for our height, we're sitting at just under 1.5 inches. Now, once I did all of this up, so I glued all of these parts together, and then I actually just used some of these spring clamps. If you don't have any of these, I would highly recommend getting some of these clamps, because it was great to just take these pieces, lay them down on the table, and put those spring clamps there right on the joints. It was so super simple to do. On the bottom ones here, because it's not as easy to put a spring clamp on these, what I ended up doing is adding a little dash of CA glue in there and some activator to help solidify it fairly quickly once I had the sides, of course, done. So there's not a lot to this project. Now, when I finished this, so I just sanded this down with 120 grit sandpaper. I mean, this is nothing more than a decorative piece, but it's a piece that certainly stands out. Now, this is something that's optional that you don't have to do. It's something that I did with this is I went on Amazon and I bought some of these LED string lights to light it up, just like this. On the back side, got a battery pack with 3 AA batteries. Now, this is not ideal because it's not incredibly well hidden. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a smaller one, but I'm willing to bet they do have them. Um, and the idea is when it's a little bit darker in your house, so it's nighttime and whatnot, you're not going to see everything. The battery pack kind of sits on the back, and then this will stand out a little bit. If you leave this on at night, of course, you won't even see any of these strings. All you're going to see is the glowing. So, I mean, you can glue these on the inside if you want. I chose to wrap them around the outside but you don't have to put them on there at all. This is just one idea that you can do, which is super simple. And all I did is finish this with a linseed oil, just something to give not a huge amount of protection, but to make it a nice smooth surface and to make it look decent. So I have made and sold some of these in the past. They've done fairly well. I've retailed things like this for about 40 bucks, give or take, depends on how much people are willing to pay. If I was going to include it with the lights, I'd do it a little bit more than that, maybe about $50 or so, something like that. But it's a great decoration item to have in your house. All right, this next project is actually a pretty cool one. And believe it or not, I didn't use cherry for this one, which is like almost unheard of. I used two of my other favorite woods to use, and that is walnut and maple. And what it is a serving tray, just like this. Okay. Now, I know that looks a little strange. Believe me, it looks like this for a reason. I'm gonna tell you why. Um, so for Christmas time, what we typically do in our family is we make gifts for each other as opposed to buying gifts for each other. And this was actually a gift for my mother, not this one, but another one just like it, that I made. What she was looking for was a centerpiece for her dining room table. And so that's what her request was. I had no other parameters other than that, so I just kind of went with it and winged it. I had some walnuts sitting in my stock. I had some scrap pieces, little slim 1/8 of an inch thick pieces of maple laying around, and I thought that I could use that to do some of the to do some splines on these 45-degree mitered corners, which is what I did right here. So I came up with some dimensions for this, and then I started building it. Now, let's look at the size of this thing. So, lengthwise, 19 and 3/8 of an inch. Widthwise was 9 and 3/8 of an inch. And at the handle, we had a height of about 3 inches. Outside of the 3 inches, we had the overall frame being at a 2-inch height. Okay, so the first thing that I did with this is I ripped down these pieces to 2 inches. I ripped these pieces down to the thickness of the handle portion right here, and then I was just going to trim this off using my bandsaw. So I trimmed these things down on my table saw. Once I had them trimmed down on my table saw, I put the miter gauge on the table saw to cut my 45s for these corners on the 2-inch pieces. Now, the reason I did that is because I find that there's a little bit more precision in a miter gauge than there is on a miter saw. That's not always the case, but that was just a personal preference for me because I can dial a miter gauge in that much easier. So I did the 45s on there. After I did that, I took this and I traced it out. I just basically drew by hand what the shape of the handle was going to be. And then for this handle here, what I did to make sure that it would work as a handle is I took a tape measure and I measured the width of my hand and added a little bit to it, which I got around 4 inches. Right, so this one here is just under 4 inches in width, and all I did for this, it was super simple to make these holes. I didn't use a router or anything like that. I had a Forstner bit, and using the Forstner bit, I drilled a hole here and here. And then once I had those holes drilled, I just drew a straight line across, and then I used my jigsaw to cut out the rest. And then, of course, I sanded in here. And most of the sanding on this I did by hand. I did a little bit on this sander back here where I took this off and I put a spindle on. So I did a little bit of that. And then once I got these to a certain point, the next thing that I had to do is to insert the bottom piece. Now, for the bottom on this, I just used a piece of 1/8 MDF. And the reason I did that is because, number one, the bottom of this serving tray, because this was a decorative piece, you're not going to see the bottom of the serving tray. So I wasn't really worried about that. But the other nice part about the MDF is it's 1/8 of an inch thick, which is the exact same thickness as the kerf on my saw blade. So it was great. So the overall opening width of this was about 8 inches. So what I did is I cut into these pieces, and I should let you know these pieces were 3/4 of an inch thick. I cut into these pieces halfway, which is 3/8 of an inch. So I added 3/8 on either side. So I took my 8-inch width and I added a total of 3/4 of an inch. So that way I'd have this piece that could slide right in the middle. And so I slid this in the middle. I did not glue it in because typically you don't do that. So it is a little bit loose, but it's a nice snug fit still. And then once I had that piece all cut, I did the same thing on this side, made this 3/4 of an inch longer. Once I had all of the stuff on that side, I then put all of this together. And if you don't have one of these, you should get it, is a 4-corner clamp like this. This is the clamp that I use to clamp it together, and it's so handy because it puts equal pressure on all 4 sides of this project. Makes it super easy. So once I had all of that done, I then used my spline jig over at the table saw. And with this jig, if you don't have a spline jig, I'm going to put a link at the top here to a video where I go over some common shop jigs. And I believe I've got the spline jig in there as well. So you might want to check that one out, but it was pretty cool. So I put this in the spline jig and I ran it through 1/2 inch depth on either side. I didn't want any big splines, nor did I need it. Once I did that, I simply added some glue and I tapped in my maple pieces that were 1/8 of an inch thick on an angle here, and then shaved it off with a flush cut saw. So it was super simple to do, and the splines just helped to hold these mitered edges together. Now, the last thing I did with this is, you'll notice I put these blocks in here, and you're probably looking at this going, what the hell is that for? And a lot of people do that when they see this one, because or when they see this, sorry, with the decorations out, because normally this is filled with decorations. If you can't tell, it's covered in glitter right now. And so the reason for these blocks being put in here is because part of the centerpiece is these candles. So these candles, you can arrange them however you want, but the idea was to put them in there so that they stay in place. Now, these are battery operated candles. You can put real ones in here if you want. That's entirely up to you. These were just, I believe it was Amazon, and they were like $10 for 3 of them on Amazon. They actually have a remote control too, so it was pretty cool. And then after these are in there, then all you do is stuff the outside with the like the green garland and some ribbon and that sort of stuff. So if you look up here, this is what it looks like when it's actually finished, and it's actually really nice looking. And it makes a great centerpiece, and it's super easy to build. There's not a lot to it. There's no screws, no nothing in this. All it is some glue and some splines on the corners, and that's it. It's super simple, cheap to build. If you wanted to sell something like this, or it's actually complete with all the garland and everything, you might be able to get like $80 or more for something like this. I wouldn't doubt that at all. And you're making it out of small pieces, so likely you can make many of these all at once. Now, my tools that I used for this was a table saw and a miter saw, and then some drill bits, some Forstner bits, that sort of stuff, and a little bit of sanding, especially on my spindle sander. But if you don't have that stuff, then you don't have to use those things. A lot of this stuff can be done by hand. If you wanted to, you could use a miter box and a handsaw. It would work just as well. It all depends on how much time you want to put into the project, but you can build it all kinds of different ways. So, super cool one, very easy to build. It looks great, and it will definitely sell. For the third project, and this is probably one of the coolest ones I made as far as Christmas stuff, and it's super handy, and this is the one I said at the beginning, everybody can use it. Um, think about this for a second. How many of you have a fireplace at home with a mantle above it? Okay, that's a big question. There's a lot of people that don't have a fireplace, or some people that have a fireplace, but it's not a fireplace with a mantle above it. So, you know, that whole Christmas tradition where you hang the stockings over the fireplace with care, right? If you don't have a fireplace and if you don't have a mantle, what do you do with those stockings for yourselves, for the kids? That's a big question mark. So, what do you do with those stockings that you've got for yourselves and for the kids? Where do you put them? Where do you hang them up? And that's where I came up with an idea, where I made something. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I haven't sold this project because this is one that I totally built just for home. But this is a project, I'm telling you, that will sell. It's almost a guarantee because of how many people can use it. So when you don't have a mantle, what do? Well, you bring in the North Pole. Now, here is how the North Pole works. Okay. You can see we've got the pole right here. And for our stockings, depending on how many people are in your household, you hang them up right like that, right by the tags on the stockings. And the reason it's so big, so tall, is because stockings are long. And because they're long, they need space. As you can see, I've got a hook here and I've got a hook here. One overlaps the other. So over the last little while, the few Christmases actually that I've had this, I've put it to the test. And I have in our household, my wife and I have 2 kids, and so we've put 4 stockings on this. Hence the reason why we've got the 4 hooks. And so empty holds them no problem. Put them on there full. Believe it or not, this actually holds them so long as they're evenly balanced on either side. It doesn't have a huge footprint, right? Which I didn't want that. So you have to be careful to balance it. My only concern with hanging full stockings on there is this little loop that might tear off. So let me go through and kind of break this down for you. First thing is this is all scrap wood. So I went to a local carpentry shop and bought a 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot high pallet filled with dunnage. Now, dunnage are those wood spacers that they put between the flatbed of a truck and drywall or lumber or whatnot when it's being delivered. And so once that dunnage is used, they typically just dispose of it. So they had a full skid of dunnage, and I bought this full skid for $50. And the skid had maple, it had ash, it had oak, it had a ton of pine and yellow pine. So that stuff was a little bit useless, but the hardwoods on there were great. The nice part about the dunnage is it was not treated. It was completely natural. The downside is that it's also not dried. So it twists, it turns, and it's very difficult to get it straight. You can certainly mill it down. For this project, I didn't actually really do that. I cut it to be as square as I could possibly get it, but this actually has a twist from here down to here. And in my personal opinion, I thought that actually added some character to it. So I thought it was pretty cool. So all I did is took this one full piece of dunnage after I squared up the sides, and that's just literally all I did to it. Gave it a light sand because I was going to paint it anyways. And so after I did that, I cut it to height. This one here is 39 inches in height. That is from underneath the top cap right down to the bottom foot plate. It is glued. The top cap is glued down. And of course, this post is screwed up from underneath to give it some stability, but it is glued on both parts. At the bottom, this is just a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that I had left over from another project. And it is 7 inches by 6 5/8. Now, the reason the dimensions are off is because it was a scrap piece left over. So I used what I had, and it worked out pretty good. On the top, I had a thicker piece. I believe this was pine on the top that I used for this. And this is about 1 3/4 inches thick. And as you can see, I routed the edges there to give it a little bit of a style. You can do whatever kind of style that you'd like on the top of something like this. I don't remember the exact name of the cut, an OG cut or something like that. So you can do whatever kind of style that you want on the top, or you can leave it a block. That is entirely up to you. So when I did this, I did the top piece. Oh, and I'll let you know the dimensions on that, which were 3 3/8 by 5 1/4. Again, do whatever dimensions you have to. This is not a fine woodworking project by any means. It really isn't. And you can do this entire project with a miter saw if you want to. It is so simple. Once I had this piece, and this piece cut, the next part was simple. Paint the middle of it red, paint the top and the bottom white. That was it. Then I went to my local hardware store and I picked up 4 of these hooks. I think these hooks were about $2 a piece. It was not a lot of money put into that. Now, the other thing that my wife happens to have is a Cricut or cry cut machine inside. So what I had my wife do up was some stencils here, so that way I could stick them onto the outside portion of this to say North Pole. Rather than doing the lines going diagonal like this, I didn't want to do that. It's just too traditional, and I didn't want my house looking like a barber shop. So I had to do this. But what I did do is had her do two different styles. So if we want the fun North Pole, that's the side that we put out. If we want the classier looking North Pole, that's the side that we put out. But if you look at this, like you can see, this is still rough cut and everything. So this is like it's a super easy project. This one is particularly heavy. I believe this was a piece of I think it was ash that I used for this one from that piece of dunnage or from that pallet of dunnage. But as you can see, like even the corner edge was shaved off here, and I left it because I thought it kind of gave it some character and made it look really unique. So this is a super simple project to build. You don't even need a miter saw for this if you don't want to, because there doesn't have to be any fancy cuts at all. And my personal opinion, this looks better rustic. So don't finish it completely. Leave it rustic. Paint it. Leave the imperfections because it's what makes it unique. I just thought this was one of the coolest things ever. And what it did for me is it solved the problem of not knowing where to put these stockings because we don't have a mantle over our fireplace. So you wanted to do something like this and sell it. As I said, I haven't sold this one before, and I really encourage some of you to build this. And if you build it, please let me know if you did sell it, how you did on it, because I'm so curious. This was an idea that I had. I think it was a few years ago that I did this, and I never even thought about it until we started bringing out some of the decorations. And this is something I told my wife I was going to bring to market probably a year and a half ago, which I never did. I forgot about it because Christmas stuff gets put away. And so I thought, you know what? Rather than bringing this to market, that I wanted to share this with you so that way you can build something like this and maybe you can bring it to market and let me know how it did. Regarding these stencils, you don't have to have stickers to post on here. I mean, you can buy letters if you want on Amazon or at a hardware store that you could stick on here, or just paint it. Just paint the lettering on there. It'll still look really cool. Bottom line is, I've never seen anything like this before at a craft show. I've never seen it online. I did do some searching. I couldn't find it. If I missed it and you find it, let me know. I'd love you to share the link in the comments because I'd really like to have a look at it. But I've just never seen one before. It's super unique. And so hopefully this is a project that you can enjoy and have some fun with. Maybe even make some money on. Sell it for $50 or something like that. It's a project I think that took me a total of 25 minutes to make. All right, now here's a couple bonus projects for you. Remember, I said at the beginning that these are not done, so they're not perfect. Okay, so if you want to take these ideas and try and make something out of them, please go for it, and I would love to see those. All right, the first one is a style of Christmas tree. Now, like I said, please be gentle. I'm not finished this. This was just an idea that I came up with. I've seen some similar stuff. I'm probably going to change a few things. So, first and foremost, I cut the star out on a laser engraver. Now, I know a lot of us don't have laser engravers, and that's fine. I was just trying to find a bit of an easier way to do it, but this is certainly something you could do on a jigsaw or whatnot if you wanted to. Just drill a hole in the center and then feed your blade around. Easy enough to do. You can use a chisel, whatever the case may be, entirely up to you. Um, then I have these pieces here that I attach. So again, 180 degrees on a triangle. So it's 60, 60, and 60. Split in two is 30-degree cuts. Okay, so this is 30 degrees, this is 30, this is 30, this is 30. They're all 30-degree cuts on this. And this is one solid piece here. And then this is individual, and this piece across the bottom is individual. Now, my original idea was I was going to put a tree inside a tree. And when I say that, I mean this little piece here, which I actually used as a stand. Okay, I was actually going to put it in the center and have it form a smaller Christmas tree. But I think I needed some bigger dimensions. Not 100% sure. So this is, I mean, this is a pretty cool project. This one I'm definitely going to keep. My kids want to paint it. So I'm going to let them do that, of course, and hold on to this one. But I'm still trying to work on some sort of designs for this one. Okay, be really gentle on this one. This one I almost kind of made by accident, I guess. Um, I started to look at doing another type of Christmas tree, very similar to the one that I just showed you. As you can see, I've got a star on top, which is actually just connected with a 1/8 dowel. This is the star that I cut out of the last project on the laser engraver. Again, you don't have to use that. I just drilled a hole in the bottom of it, drilled a hole in the peak of this tree, and push it on there like this. And then, and this is only on here temporarily. This piece is not staying. Again, this is all 30-degree cuts, but I'm going to be putting a larger tree that goes up this way to act as the stand. So whether it's this way or whether it's this way, it looks like a Christmas tree no matter what. That was kind of the idea. And then the star will probably get painted yellow. This will likely get painted green, so it's festive, or because it's a nice cherry wood, maybe it stays natural. I haven't decided that yet, but let me know what you think about this one. Honestly, I'm kind of on the fence about it, so don't be too hard on me for this one. I was just kind of playing around to try and get some other ideas. But hey, if you can make this one even better, then go for it. I'd love to see it too, or hear about it anyways. Couple of new things with the channel. Number one is I've launched a Patreon page. Now on the Patreon page, there's a free membership and a paid. Both of them are going to have the same benefits. So if you want to see some behind the scenes stuff, some unedited footage, some photos, and hopefully nothing with me cursing or swearing in it, then become a member, and even for free. If you or if you're interested in supporting the channel at all, and you'd like to become a paid member on Patreon, that's absolutely amazing as well. And I appreciate it a lot. But if you're just looking to see some of the inside content, then please join as a free member. I'd love to have you over there. Now, also, Timber Designs has now launched a merch shop, which you can find some of the products listed below this video, and you'll also see it in the shop on the YouTube homepage, as well as on Patreon as well. This hat is actually one of the items that came from that shop, so make sure to jump on over there and check out that sweet clothing that's on there. The hats are awesome. This one's partially wool. It's really, really good quality. Same with the hoodies and the t-shirts. I've got some of that stuff as well, because I would never sell something if I hadn't tried it myself to make sure it was good. But it's really good quality stuff. So make sure to check it out. And any purchases you make on there, I really appreciate it. It helps support the channel. So I thank you so much for that. Thanks for joining me in the shop, and we'll see you in the next video.